These minutes I have here is to talk about the bigger picture and some of the changes that are affecting economic activity in the ocean and some of the challenges that this presents to tourism and to other economic players. What you see here is some of the mega trends, the environment and sustainability trends that are really operating at a global scale and a regional and national and even local scale that are affecting how economic players interact with the ocean and with each other and creating some real challenges for companies, for industries to understand how they can continue to operate. So some of the things such as the precautionary approach, the development of marine protected areas. Increasingly, we talk about marine spatial planning, and a lot of this is these developments are being driven by concerns about the health of the ocean, the status of marine biodiversity. And when you put all of these trends together, it's really creating a complex set of challenges for ocean industries and understanding what their priorities should be, how they can address these issues and these challenges and continue to be profitable and grow their businesses. And the smart companies are realizing that these are also creating opportunities. They're not just risks, but also opportunities. As you would be aware, we have an increasingly complex set of activities going on in the ocean, a wide diversity of kinds of use. And these uses are all growing, not just in terms of the sorts of activities, but also the geographic scope, the intensity, the frequency, and all of these developments are interacting with each other, creating a much more complex and challenging set of operating conditions for any one given company or any one industry. If you look at a global ocean view from each industry sector, shipping and fishing and oil and gas, etc., every industry has their view of what this one connected up global ocean looks like. And what we're trying to do with the World Ocean Council is get industries to think about these different uses, and if you start to lay these maps over one another, you get a sense of how complex at a global scale the use and economic development of the ocean is becoming. And this is only some examples of the kinds of use that are out there. There are certainly many more as per the previous slide. And what many other ocean stakeholders, governments and environment groups and coastal communities, they feel that the ocean is becoming so overused, particularly in coastal waters and within the EEZ, that it's a chaotic mix of overlapping and competing uses that are not very well coordinated and not very well planned for. And in fact, the marine scientists are now really putting together a few years ago for the first time this global view of what kind of impacts all of these economic activities are having cumulatively on this global ocean environment, this single global ecosystem that's connected all across the world. And as you can see, basically no part of the world is unaffected by human activity. And this is the view that we need to really keep in mind as we think about future economic development, that all of these centuries of activity and this growing intensity and geographic scope of activity is having a cumulative impact on this huge but still finite global ocean ecosystem. And at the same time as we have all of these different kinds of economic activities going on and the effects of those, there are many other values and important aspects of the ocean that are concerned to all of us as society, and in particular in relation to environment and marine biodiversity, ecosystem functions, with other stakeholders having their global ocean view as well in terms of a vision for conservation and protected areas and maintaining these other values that are not necessarily directly related to economic activity and results. So this creates a challenge for what we call the ocean business community, this diverse range of industries that use marine space and marine resources. On one hand, these economic players, they need access. They need to be able to get out to the ocean areas and resources that they depend on. But at the same time, they recognize that these issues are increasingly affecting their future access to areas and resources, and that they have a responsibility for continued responsible use of the economic resources upon which they depend. And there are many very good companies, there are many very good people in good companies that care about the ocean. And they're working on addressing these issues and these challenges. The problem is, because the ocean is connected, the best efforts by a single company or even an entire industry will not be able to ensure the continued health and productivity of this global marine ecosystem. And so this is a challenge where we have individual companies and sectors operating in the marine environment, having effects on that marine environment, but yet not being able to deal with the cumulative situation, because they are only one piece of this connected up multiple use. And if you really step back and think about how big and diverse that global ocean business community is, it's really hundreds of thousands of companies and millions of jobs around the world. We like to break it down in this way, as you can see here, that there are direct users, the ones that we normally think of as the ocean industries: shipping, fishing, oil and gas, aquaculture, offshore renewable energy, these direct users of ocean space and resources. But as many of you would be aware, certainly with a group like this focused on economics of tourism and other activities, that each of those direct user companies would have a whole ecosystem of support industries. So shipping requires shipbuilding, it requires the marine technology industry, the marine fuel industry, the whole port sector. So all of these industries together, this second tier of ocean use support industries, create a complex web of economic activity. And even broader than that, around all of these is an encompassing level of economic support through financing, through insurance, and other broad-based support infrastructure that makes economic activity in the ocean possible. So what this has really led to is the need for a broader, more comprehensive ocean business community-driven level of engagement on future activity and sustainability. The problem is there hasn't been a structure or a process to get these different sectors, shipping, fishing, oil and gas, etc., to really bring them together to work on these cross-cutting issues and really develop the mechanisms, the tools, the approaches for a more collective business community approach through working groups or platforms to engage collectively on these issues and challenges. And this has led to the formation of the World Ocean Council that I represent. We have now an organization that we like to refer to as an Ocean Industry Leadership Alliance. So we're getting these different sectors together, working across these sectoral boundaries, as I say, cutting across. And we're not trying to be everything to every industry, but it's really about leadership. And not just the big companies, it's the leadership companies, big and small, in shipping and fishing and oil and gas and the other sectors, working together on these cross-cutting issues under the umbrella term we call corporate ocean responsibility. The goal of this collaboration and leadership amongst the diverse business community, you can see here, is really a collective vision of working towards a healthy and productive global ocean, as well as its sustainable and responsible use by a responsible group of companies working together. And very importantly and critically to this is the business value, the business benefits of that collaboration. As mentioned at the beginning, there are risks to the continued access and use of marine space and resources. And the business value of collaboration is to reduce that risk and ensure future access and continued access by these different industries to marine space and resources. And there are also real economic values to collaboration, economies of scale, synergies in working together to tackle cross-cutting issues and ensure that there's stability and predictability in the continued work, continued potential for ocean industries to do what we as society want them to do. We want continued maritime transport that brings us goods at a reasonable price. We need energy from the sea, both renewable and fossil fuels. We need protein from fisheries and aquaculture. So to work with the business community and have the business community work collectively to ensure that they've got the stability to continue to provide those services is a key business driver to this collaboration and leadership. We have a growing number of members. That's probably too small to read, but over 70 companies now, including we're very proud to have EDP Renewables from Portugal as one of our members. Also very honored to have Nautilus Minerals, who will be speaking here today, as well as the real first leader in seabed mining, and many other companies, from some of the biggest in the world in the oil and gas and shipping and mining sector to many medium and small enterprises as well that are developing science and technology solutions to sustainability challenges. What I'd like to do is briefly give you a sense of some of the cross-cutting issues that are priorities for ocean industry leadership and collaboration, and the overview is listed here of the kinds of things that this global growing ocean business community is working on. And I'll mention a few examples for each of these to give you a sense of the work and the value and potential of this kind of international collaboration amongst the ocean economic players. In the area of ocean governance and policy, we've got a particular focus on key instruments and international treaties. Most of you would be familiar with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, but also the Convention on Biological Diversity, as mentioned here, is one of the large and encompassing international treaties that's increasingly, through the Conference of Parties, working on international marine issues. And this is important work that's moving forward very steadily, but it's also very important that the business community is involved in that work. And we are, you can see here a list of some of the marine discussions, marine and coastal discussions going on through that treaty. We are, through the World Ocean Council, increasingly working to make sure that the business community is involved in those negotiations and discussions that the governments have been holding. This process is really continuing now with a particular focus on the high seas, the international waters, where there's a lot of activity and movement to develop high seas marine protected areas and management zones, such as the example here that really touches upon Madeira practically, the Sargasso Sea, looking at very large three-dimensional international waters, protected areas, and management regimes. Another important area that I know Portugal has been very active in, marine spatial planning, is a growing movement around the world with governments in many areas, particularly here in Europe, but also in the United States and in Australia and a few other places, really looking at the ways to develop a more strategic and coordinated ocean zoning and planning of the use of marine space, allocation of which activities can take place where, and a lot of work going on in different countries to identify the resources, identify the uses, the natural values, and put those maps together and develop an allocation, a spatial allocation and planning of which activity or which non-activity is able to take place in different parts of the marine environment with the sorts of values and outputs listed here in terms of rationalizing use, reducing conflict, etc. That's, of course, going on very actively here in Europe. This map is a few years old, and I know many countries have been advancing their marine spatial planning here in Europe. In the U.S., in the last 4 years, this has also been advanced very much through a series of 9 regions, 9 marine spatial planning regions that are now starting to develop the planning process. And we've been facilitating that starting in the U.S. and also been requested by here in Europe to potentially help with marine spatial planning and ensuring that the business community is involved as it needs to be. This is a gathering that we had on that in the U.S., for example. We have a series of working groups forming around technical issues, operational issues that are very important to a range of industries, things like that you can see listed here regarding pollution issues, the need for reception facilities in ports, issues of impacts on ocean activities, ocean economic activities on marine mammals and other aspects of marine biodiversity, the issue of invasive species from ballast water, from biofouling, the organisms that grow on the outside of a hull of a ship or an oil rig. The important issue that's going to be very much growing in the years to come of sound or noise in the marine environment. All of these require a cross-cutting, a multi-industry approach at an international scale to really tackle appropriately. Let me skip over into a couple of the last areas here. One of the other approaches that we are increasingly involved in is taking this idea of a multi-industry approach to marine issues and working on it at a regional scale. We've particularly focused as a priority on the Arctic to start with, but you can see some of the other areas that are of interest, including creating a transatlantic ocean business community to really look at this big body of water right out here that is really linking the countries and the economic players and creating business leadership in ensuring we've got a sustainable and productive Atlantic for the decades to come. As I say, we've moved most actively on the Arctic. We had the first ever Arctic Business Leadership Council meeting last year in Iceland. And this has brought together oil and gas and shipping and fisheries and tourism and mining leadership companies to start to form a collective view and set of activities around responsible use and planning for use of the Arctic as it becomes more accessible with the changes there. And this has formed a linkage with the Arctic Council as the main intergovernmental body planning for and developing the policies and governance of Arctic use. The last area I'd like to focus on is the role of science and observations and the linkage between ocean industries and improving our understanding and knowledge and ability to better manage and sustain and responsibly use ocean areas and resources. We have a program called the Smart Ocean, Smart Industries Program, which is looking to scale up, increase the number and kinds of vessels and platforms, so merchant vessels, container ships, tankers, but also fishing vessels, oil rigs, offshore aquaculture, offshore wind energy platforms that are collecting standardized ocean and weather and climate data that feed into the national databases and the international programs that improve our understanding, our ability to model and predict ocean and weather conditions. There are many tens of thousands of vessels out there. This is just an indication of the merchant vessels, for example, that could be collecting standardized data if they had the instrumentation on board and the involvement in a program. So we're also engaging with as I say, the oil industry and others that have fixed platforms out in the marine environment. There are many kinds of vessels, as I mentioned, that could be participating in such a program, and many already do collect environmental baseline data when they start their building their facilities or exploring where they're going to be working. So to wrap this up, we have now been pursuing the development of this global coordinated system for engaging more industries in collecting ocean weather and climate data through this sort of program on a comprehensive, scalable, multi-industry mechanism, a coordinating platform to engage more industries in this. And we're having major interest from companies all over the world in getting involved in this and really helping better understand the oceans so that they can operate more safely and sustainably. So with that, I'd really like to thank the organizers and thank all of you for your time, and certainly look forward to interacting with all of you during the day today. Thank you very much.